They said, "Your wife checked in with another man yesterday." I froze, but my mind did not. It narrowed to a single line of action. Breathe, listen, remember, then plan. I did not shout. I did not storm through the lobby. I stood there with my heart thudding like a loose hinge and told myself that truth survives heat, but proof survives court. In that moment, the life I thought I knew tilted, and I chose not to fall with it. This story touches on mature themes of infidelity. I will keep it respectful and non-graphic because pain does not need lurid details to be understood. If that is your experience, know you are not alone here. If this kind of true life story resonates with you, please like and subscribe and tell me your city and the local time in the comments. I read everyone, and your words help more people find the courage to face theirs. Maybe you have stood where I stood, the space between suspicion and certainty. Maybe you are standing there right now. I can tell you this much. Rushing makes noise, but patience makes evidence. I chose patience and a plan I could live with after the dust-settled dot in Cedar Ridge. Folks knew us as steady. Sunday service, the same booth at the diner, the same porch light glowing after dark. What neighbors could not see were the tiny shifts inside those familiar rooms, the pauses that hung too long, the new passwords, the perfume that did not smell like us. I missed some of it until I could not. Before I show you how I learned the truth and what I did next, you need to know who we were before one sentence changed everything. Stay with me now, please. If you passed us on a Sunday, you'd have said we were solid as an oak. We were the couple in the third pew at First Baptist, the ones who brought deviled eggs to the potluck, and a cobbler if peaches were in season. Our porch light clicked on at dusk like clockwork, and the flag on the mailbox never hung crooked. We were exactly what Cedar Ridge expects from people who've put down roots steady, known, dependable dot. My name is Martin Cole, 51, maintenance supervisor for the county schools. I know every boiler room and breaker panel from the elementary to the high school, and I can tell you which hallway tiles squeak before they do. I married Alana when I was 26, and she was 24. She's 49 now, quick with names, always remembering birthdays. The kind of woman folks stop in the grocery store to hug. We raised 2 kids in a brick ranch with azaleas out front, and a maple that turns to fire every October. Their rooms still smell faintly of poster glue and bubble gum. Even though the kids are grown and gone to their own lives, Cedar Ridge sits where the foothills begin. A town that wears its seasons like a favorite shirt. The mornings are soft with fog, and the evenings pull a blue hush over the pines. Downtown is 3 blocks of brick and awning, a barber that's been cutting hair since my dad's day, and a diner where Ellie keeps coffee hot. Friday nights belong to football. You'll find half the county in the bleachers, breath steaming when November comes, band horns bright under the lights. Saturdays are for yards mowers humming, rakes scratching, someone always borrowing a ladder. Sunday afternoons drift into front porch talk, hounds asleep under rocking chairs, the smell of hickory smoke. Somewhere up the street our rhythms were set by simple things. I was out the door by 6 with a thermos and a biscuit, back by 4, unless a pipe burst or winter took a shot at the heat. Alana handled the details that make a house feel like a life card's in the mail, fresh towels, a jar of change for the grandkids when they visit. We had our spots, the booth by the window at Ellie's, the pew near the aisle where old Mr. Jenkins can stretch his bad knee, the patch of riverbank where the bream bite on bread. People read our steadiness as love, and there was love in it, a kind that's made of 1,000 small yeses. But love, like oak, can hide the start of a crack under smooth bark. Alana took on more nights out with the ladies, and the book club seemed to multiply meetings I never saw on the calendar. She started keeping her phone close, smiling down at it like at a private joke. None of it was a crime. It was just new and new in a house that loves the old will always ring louder than it should. We still waved from the porch, still took casseroles to new parents and mourners, still looked like a picture that didn't need retouching. Inside, though, the air held a different weight. Nothing dramatic, just little shifts, until the day those small shifts added up to a sign I couldn't ignore. We built our life one overtime shift and one school play at a time. I met Alana in the kind of ordinary way that feels like fate when you look back. She was shelving paperbacks at the library, humming a hymn so soft you had to lean in to catch it. And I was a young tech from the county shop, returning a letter I had no business carrying through the front door. I apologized. She laughed, and the sound stuck with me like the scent of old pages. We talked about nothing, then about everything. And by fall, we were saving ticket stubs and trading recipes. Like two people practicing for a home that did not yet exist. We married under a white tent behind her parents' house. The ground soft from a morning shower, the air smelling like cut grass and lemon cake. The band played standards. My uncle grilled chicken on a rusted barrel, and we danced until her hair fell out of its pins. We did not have much, but we had a plan. Buy a small place, pay more than the minimum, fix what we could with our own hands, and make it beautiful by persistence. I took every extra shift the schools could offer. She picked up weekend hours at the library and coordinated the church's food pantry. The house was a tired brick ranch with good bones and a bad roof. We patched shingles, pulled up stained carpet, and found hardwood waiting underneath like a kept promise. I learned to sweat copper pipes without blistering my fingers. She could tape a perfect paint line along a window mullion without breathing. Saturdays smelled like sawdust and coffee. Sundays smelled like pot roast and fresh soap. When money got tight, we sold a set of rims I loved and a set of china she swore she didn't. We laughed at the same jokes, fought about nothing, and said sorry before bed, even when pride wanted us to wait until morning. Kids came, and our calendar filled with milestones and mud. I built a crib from pine and stubbornness, then a treehouse that leaned but never fell. She kept a binder of report cards, doctor visits, and birthday themes, each page a testimony to order in a world of sticky hands. We divided the labor the old-fashioned way, and then blurred the lines where kindness asked us to. I learned braids and lunchbox notes. She learned torque specs and the smell of a belt about to squeal. We were a team, not glamorous, but good. Sunday belonged to family. After church, we'd fill the table with whatever the week had given roast, if it was payday, beans and cornbread if it wasn't, and we'd invite whoever needed a seat more than we needed leftovers. I carved meat with the same careful strokes I used on copper pipe. Alana said grace that sounded like a letter to a friend. In the afternoon, we napped, walked, or drove the back roads with the windows down, pointing at farms and saying someday like two kids who actually believed it. Busy seasons made us closer. When the boilers failed in January, she packed me thermoses and notes tucked under sandwiches. When she ran a charity drive at church, I loaded boxes, checked lists, and set up tables until the hall looked like order itself. We were never rich, but we were resourceful. If something broke, it was a project, not a crisis. If we argued, it was about tone, not truth, and we fixed it with time and a walk. Alana's heart tilted outward. She organized meal trains for new mothers, taught reading on Wednesday nights, and knew which pantry shelves ran low before anyone asked. People trusted her with keys and secrets. I admired that. My way of loving was steadier, quieter. I showed up on time with tools that worked and gas in the truck. I believed in lists, filters changed on schedule, and the simple miracle of keeping your word. Over time, the seams let in air. Girls' nights added dates, then extra miles. Her phone began living in her pocket, face down on the table like it needed rest. Book club stretched later, then earlier, then to Saturdays. I told myself change is natural, that empty rooms echo, but the echoes carried questions I couldn't quite name. Most nights I waited. It wasn't a storm. It was a slow, quiet wind that started moving things around the house. It started with a password and a new perfume that didn't smell like us. Alana's phone had always slept on the counter like a harmless clock, lighting and buzzing without secrets. One Saturday, I watched her thumb draw a new lock across the glass, a soft click where there used to be none. She said the update made her do it, laughed, and slipped the phone into her pocket. The gesture was small, ordinary, and yet it changed the temperature of the room. We used to pass that phone back and forth like a salt shaker. She'd hand it to me to read a recipe while she stirred a pot. I'd pass it to her when my hands were under a sink and one of the kids texted. Lately it lived face down, screen sleeping like it needed privacy. When it lit after 10, she angled it away and smiled at something I wasn't invited to see. A laugh would float from the hallway, not for me, and the bathroom door would click. She said it was just the girls, the church thread, the book club. Then Miss Gloria poured me coffee after service and apologized for canceling Tuesday night. You didn't miss much, she said. We'll try again next week. My mouth thanked her. My stomach marked the date. That evening, I asked Alana how the meeting went. Lively, she said. Great debate about the ending. Maybe lemon bars next time. Her answer fit the picture on our wall, but not the calendar on Gloria's fridge. And the mismatch kept blinking. Another night, she came home wrapped in a smell like a hotel lobby trying to outbloom spring. It was lovely, but it wasn't ours. The next morning, a small gold leaf rested at her throat. New? I asked. The girls chipped in, she said, for the pantry. Her fingers found it again and again, like a new habit. In our house, gifts usually arrived with stories. Who picked them, where they were found, why they fit. This one had no history, just showing, and the way the light caught it felt like a signal I couldn't translate. Little things fell out of place. A boutique tag in the trash didn't match any store in Cedar Ridge. A folded bag in the trunk named a shop 2 towns over. On the bank app, a charge blinked from Magnolia Suites off Highway 23. Dated the same night, Gloria said her living room sat empty. Card error, Alana waved. Already reversed. It happens. Banks make mistakes. People do too. Maybe I wanted that to be true, because the alternative would pull nails from boards we'd hammered in together. Our house had always been transparent. The kind where you can find scissors in the same drawer and a flashlight by the back door without thinking. Lately, drawers slid shut with care, doors eased into place, and the purse lived on the bedroom chair instead of the hook. We had always been a team that traded privacy for peace, because trust was our constant. Now the boundary moved under my feet. I told myself to be generous, to remember women deserve their air. Still, I heard distance in the quiet and saw that gold leaf glint like a signal I couldn't read. I kept mowing, fixing, showing up on time, trying to let the feeling pass like weather. I told myself there had to be a simple answer and that patience would find it. I told myself not to be paranoid, until a voice at her front desk said the words I'll never forget. I asked simple questions. She gave me complicated answers. Where are you headed? Book club, she said, but the title changed twice between the kitchen and the car. Who's hosting? Teresa no, Diane well, actually Gloria offered last minute. I asked what the book was about. She told me it was layered, nuanced, more interesting than it sounds, and laughed into her sleeve like the detail itself needed hiding. When I offered to drive her, save you the parking, I said she kissed my cheek and claimed the ladies were carpooling. I'll ride with Margot, she added, and then left in her own car. Later, when she returned, the story grew a new branch. Margot had to pick up her niece, so Alana had driven after all, and her battery died for an hour, which was why my calls went to voicemail. Maybe all of that was true. Any piece of life can be stitched together loosely enough. I tried dates. Let me take you to Ellie's Friday night. Just us, like we used to. She smiled the way you smile at a child who's almost right and said she was exhausted next week. Next week arrived, and she was needed at the pantry. I tried Saturdays at the river, but she had a headache that didn't need a doctor, just a dark room. The old ease we had two people moving like one body, and the kitchen shook loose into two separate dances at church. I asked Miss Gloria how the book club had gone. We postponed again, she said, eyes apologetic, and handed me a flyer for a rummage sale. I nodded and folded the paper like it might fold the doubt in my chest. At the hardware store, Caleb mentioned he saw our cannery near Magnolia Suites late one afternoon when he was dropping a pallet. Said he waved, but the windows were tinted, and he couldn't be sure. I said it must have been someone else. Back in the truck, my breath felt like it had to choose a side. I turned my questions inward. Was I reading meanings into ordinary things because the kids were gone and the rooms were loud with quiet? Had routine made me brittle? Maybe I was jealous of a phone or of a life that didn't need me to change filters and fix stuck drawers. That night, I asked about the necklace again, not accusing, curious. She touched it, smiled, and said the girls had pulled a thank you for her work at the pantry. I asked which girls, picturing faces, and she said, "Don't be silly, you don't know them all." And I heard the door close in that sentence. I waited a beat and changed the subject to river levels and a busted pump at the middle school. And we ate dinner like two clerks exchanging paperwork. I peeked at our bank app and saw a charge disappear, the way a fish flashes and sinks. The descriptor read Magnolia, then turned into a bank code, like someone took a cloth to a window. Card error, she would say, and maybe that happens as often as storms. I told myself to let it rest, to be fair, to trust the woman who had stood beside me in every picture we own. I kept my voice soft and my questions short, but the answers kept growing arms. The more I pressed for simple, the more complicated the stories became, and the more I doubted whether the man I prided myself on being was seeing clearly at all. I needed facts, not feelings. So I started a quiet plan. I didn't go hunting for a fight. I went hunting for the truth. The old me would have knocked on a door and let pride do the talking. The man I needed to be carried a notebook and kept his mouth shut. I opened a fresh spiral, wrote the date at the top, and started with what I knew. Nights, places, names. Magnolia Suites was first. I called and asked a simple question. Could I leave a message for a guest who might be under her maiden name, Miss Alana Carter? The clerk said they couldn't confirm. I thanked her and asked if there was a way to attach my number to a message, in case she checked in. She agreed to take the note. I pressed record, not on a camera but on a paper trail. I downloaded the last 3 months of card statements, circled anything that smelled like travel, and printed them. Magnolia. A fuel charge on a day she told me Margot had driven. I put the papers in a manila folder and labeled it with black marker. I didn't want to own. I called Donna Pike, who sat 3 rows behind me in chemistry and now runs front desk training for a regional hotel group. Dana, I said, I don't want gossip. I want to know what's legal and what's decent. She told me hotels protect guest privacy, and managers won't hand over folios without a subpoena or consent. If you need records, she said, have an attorney send a preservation letter so nothing accidentally disappears. You can also book a room on the same floor, but don't attempt any recording in private areas. Keep your hands clean. Let paper do the work. So I called Reed Wallace, who used to play tight end and practices law over on Court Street. He asked for dates. He told me what evidence a judge respects and what gets tossed. No hidden cameras in bedrooms or bathrooms. No wiretaps. No pretending to be staff. Keep a log, he said. Save statements. If you're going to be at a hotel, book a room across the hall or nearby. Pay with your card. Time-stamp your observations. If a manager volunteers basic info unprompted, write the name and time. We can subpoena the rest. I made a quiet reservation at Magnolia Suites for a Thursday she'd already marked book club. I asked for the second floor, near 212 if possible, and told the clerk I snored and didn't want anyone on the other side of the wall. She laughed, then put me in 211 with a note to keep the block consistent. I thanked her, hung up, and felt both foolish and steady at the same time. I set alerts on the bank app for any charge at Magnolia or the other places circled in red. I copied our shared calendar, printed my text history, and scanned the days when book club overlapped with card error. I mapped the drive times to each hotel and marked what was plausible and what demanded help. Then I practiced not reacting. I answered normal questions with normal words. I mowed, fixed, and slept on the edge of the mattress like a man staying inside the lines. When Alana said she had a meeting Thursday, I said drive safe. When she asked if I needed anything from town, I asked for coffee filters. I wanted rage. I chose records. I wrote one sentence at the bottom of the page. I am going to do this without breaking myself. Then came the call that made my hands go cold. Sir, your wife checked in with another man yesterday. The sentence slid through the receiver like a cold draft under a door. I didn't answer at first. I watched my hand go pale around the phone and listened to the manager breathe, as if he couldn't believe he'd said it either. Under what name? I asked when my voice returned. Miss Alana Carter, he said, careful now. 2 adults. 1 king. I wrote the time and his name on a fresh line, like I was marking the edge of a map. Everything in me wanted to start the truck, drive 12 miles, and knock until my knuckles bled. But Reed's voice lived in my ear now, steady as a metronome. Paper, not volume. Dates, not scenes. So I swallowed the shout and stayed seated at the kitchen table, the clock over the sink ticking like a witness. Gary, I said, keeping my tone even, I'm not asking for records. My attorney will send a preservation letter. Please don't alter or delete anything. He cleared his throat. Understood. He'd opened the door. Now he wanted it closed. Off the record, he added, softer. The folio shows 1 night so far. If you need anything formal, have counsel contact the general manager. I thanked him, ended the call, and stared at my reflection in the black phone screen until it went to sleep. Then I opened our bank app. A new alert blinked like a siren I couldn't hear. Magnolia Suites. Pending. I took screenshots with the date and time at the top and emailed them to myself. I printed the week's transactions and slid them into the manila folder. The urge to move was physical, like a cramp. I stood, paced, sat back down. I wrote what Gary had said, word for word. I wrote what I had asked and what I hadn't, so I wouldn't lie to myself later. I called Dana, my old schoolmate in hospitality, and left a message asking for the general manager's contact. Then I rang Reed's office and told his assistant exactly what had occurred. She said they'd send the preservation letter within the hour and reminded me not to engage. At lunch I drove to the hardware store and bought a cheap pocket calendar because paper steadies me in a way screens never will. I filled the squares I knew, her claimed meetings, the nights Gloria had canceled, the date of the boutique bag, the first day the gold leaf necklace appeared. I circled Thursday and wrote, small, 211. I called Magnolia and asked if they could keep me adjacent to 212 next week. "You're in luck," the clerk said. "We can arrange that." I wrote the time beside her words. Outside, a storm was building over the ridge, the air too heavy for words. I remembered the first time I saw Alana in the library light, dust and kindness around her, and wondered how much of any story remains true when one line is exposed as a lie. Then I tucked the calendar in my shirt pocket and went back to work. Pipes still leak. Kids still need heat. The world keeps its appointments even when a house falls out of schedule. That evening, Alana kissed my cheek and said, "Book club. Don't wait up." I nodded and asked if she needed gas. She said she was fine, and the porch light caught the gold leaf at her throat like a flare. When the Camry's taillights turned the corner, I opened my notebook and wrote the time. I didn't chase her. I didn't follow. I sat at the kitchen table and practiced being the kind of man I could face in the mirror tomorrow. The next morning, Reed called to confirm the hotel had acknowledged the preservation letter. "If anyone asks," he said, "you're not investigating your wife. You're documenting your own financial exposure. That's true, and it's safer. Keep your log. If you want additional confirmation, you may accept a general statement and employee volunteers. Do not press. The subpoena will do the rest." An hour later, he forwarded the general manager's email confirming receipt. At the bottom, he'd typed, "You're doing fine." I printed that too and placed it on top. Before bed, I laid out my plan like tools on a bench, time-stamped screenshots, printed transactions, and neutral log, the hotel's acknowledgement, a reservation across the hall on the date she had already chosen without me. I pressed my palm flat on the paper to feel the edges. A picture was forming that didn't ask me to color it angry. It just needed light. I breathed in, breathed out, and wrote one last line in the notebook, a promise to myself about the man I would be when this ended. Then the urge surged again, hot. I pictured the drive, the knock, silence breaking tonight. I pictured headlines people write in whispers. I pictured a judge, bored with stories, asking for dates. I wasn't going to catch her to humiliate her. I was going to catch the lie to end it. I called two people, my son for strength, my lawyer for strategy. My boy answered on the second ring, voice bright until he heard the weight in mine. I told him the truth without the mess. "Your mother and I are having serious trouble, and I'm putting a plan together so we don't hurt each other or you." I didn't offer details he didn't ask for. I asked him to keep the grandkids with him this weekend, to give his mother space, and to check in with me each evening. He said he was here for whatever I needed, then asked the one question that mattered. "Are you safe?" I told him I was. I asked him to be kind to his mother and not to pry. I called my daughter next. I used the same careful words, the same boundaries. She cried softly and said she'd pray and bring me supper if I wanted it. I told her to keep her Sunday, to stick to routine, to let me carry the difficult part. I asked both of them not to talk to their mother about what we discussed until I said so. Confusion spreads faster than truth. I wanted to starve it. Then I called Reed. He listened without interrupting, then laid out the rails. "Do not ambush," he said. "Preserve evidence. Avoid anything illegal or that looks vindictive. Keep logging dates and times. Book across the hall as planned. Make sure you pay with your own card and keep the receipt. If the manager volunteers information, note name, title, and time. Do not record private conversations. After we have clean proof, consider quiet service of papers while she's away to avoid a scene. We'll ask for temporary orders regarding the house, accounts, and vehicle use. Do not move out unless we decide together. Possession matters. If she confronts you, be brief. You are not required to explain anything tonight. We moved to money. Open a separate account in your name, he said, and route your next direct deposit there. Leave joint bill pay intact so utilities don't become hostages. Freeze the joint home equity line to prevent new draws. Set alerts on every card. Photograph important documents, titles, passports, tax returns, and email them to yourself. Make a one-page timeline of material events. Judges read short. I drove to the credit union, opened an account, and moved only what I earned. On the way home, I stopped at the office and scanned our tax files and insurance policies. At the kitchen table, one printed statements, wrote dates in the margins, and slid everything into clear sleeves so I could see without shuffling. I locked the folder in the truck, not because I expected a fight, but because calm lives better with simple precautions. I texted my son and asked him to keep the grandkids overnight Saturday. Told my daughter I might need her to sit with her mother if papers had to be served. I called my boss and said I might need a day on short notice. No details, just the courtesy of a heads up. I asked our neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, to call me if he saw any unfamiliar cars idling by the house. I framed it as a favor to a man who travels for work. I didn't recruit an army. I set gentle guardrails. That night I wrote the one-page timeline in block letters. Red flag, canceled club, boutique bag, Magnolia, hotel call, 211. At the bottom I wrote my promise again. I will act with dignity. All that was left was the hardest part, waiting for the next check-in. I heard her laugh through the wall, and 9:17 p.m. didn't knock. From 211, my door faced theirs across the carpet, a beige hallway with a humming ice machine and the faint citrus of cleaner. At 4:42, the lock on 212 chirped and clicked. I marked it. At 5:10, a housekeeping cart rattled by. I marked that too, so later no one could claim a noise I logged was simply a vacuum. I kept the TV on low to blend my presence into the building, but my pen moved like a metronome. I set my phone on the dresser with a voice memo running, the mic pointed toward my own door. No peeking under doors, no microphones in hallways, nothing invasive, only the ambient sounds any guest could hear from inside his room. At 7:03, the latch across the hall opened and closed. A man's voice drifted, and silence. At 9:17, the laugh I knew by muscle memory rose and sank like a bow on a string. I put my hand flat on the table and did not stand. Urges are fast. Dignity is slow. I reminded myself of Reed's rule paper, not volume. Dates, not scenes. I wrote exact times with a steady hand and let the ink carry what my throat wanted to shout. At 11:41, the peephole across the way flashed with light. At 11:43, a delivery knock came 2 doors down. At 12:06, their door clicked again. Each entry got one clean line. When the memo reached 2 hours, I stopped it, saved it, and started another so the file would carry a timestamp. I slept in pieces. At 6:58 a.m., the hall woke with soft wheels and murmurs. At 7:12, 212 opened. 2 sets of steps, one lighter, one heavier, passed my threshold. I did not look. I wrote. I waited until the elevator sighed them away, then showered, dressed, and gathered my receipts. My room folio had my name, my card, my rate, and the assigned room number beside 211. It was a mundane artifact, but the right kind of mundane. Downstairs, I asked for the manager and placed my phone on the counter, speaker on, Reed already waiting. I showed my ID and said, calmly, that counsel had sent a preservation letter, and I was not requesting protected guest details at the desk. Reed thanked the manager for acknowledging preservation in writing and asked if their custodian of records could. Today, provide a general record of stay confirmation, suitable for a business record certification at a later date. The manager understood the lane. He would not hand me a folio. He did agree to sign a short statement for counsel, confirming that a reservation existed under Alana Carter for specific dates, with a room designated for 2 adults, team bed. He initialed the date and time and wrote his title. Reed emailed a template. The manager printed, signed, scanned, and sent it back to the firm. I paid my balance, tucked my own folio into the folder, and stepped into the parking lot air that smells different after a long night. Reed told me to drive straight to the office. There, I handed over the log, the receipts, the screenshots, and the audio files. He didn't listen to the audio. He verified its metadata dates, duration, no private content, and noted its existence for subpoena. He stamped the manager's statement received, made 3 copies, and slid one back to me. His assistant drafted the initial pleadings appropriate for our state: a claim for separation with requests for interim distribution, post-separation support, equitable distribution, and an order granting me temporary exclusive use of the home. Where I live, you file for divorce after a period. The fault matters most for support and credibility. We would preserve it in a simple, readable way. By noon, a motion went to court asking for a restraining order on dissipation of marital assets and a freeze on joint discretionary spending above a set amount. The Hellock lender received a fax instructing no additional draws without both signatures. Credit card limits on the joint account were lowered with 1 call. My paycheck rerouted to the new account. Utilities remained on autopay from the joint to avoid hostages. Control without cruelty, that was the line. Reed hired a process server we both trusted, the quiet kind who wears a windbreaker and says, "Ma'am." Service would be timed when she was away to protect everyone from a doorway scene. He warned me that the first story is often loud. "Stick to 1 sentence," he said. "If confronted, we'll talk through counsel." He asked if I planned to leave the house. I said no. "Then don't," he answered. "Possession is a fact judges notice. If you feel unsafe, call me, then call the sheriff." I drove home with the folder seat, belted in beside me like a passenger. The house looked the same as yesterday, the maple throwing light on the porch, the rug centered, the flag still plumb. Inside, I made coffee and wiped the counter for no reason other than motion quiet's noise. At 4:20, the Camry pulled in. Ailana came in with a grocery bag, kissed my cheek, and asked if I wanted spaghetti. I said yes. I did not ask about a book or a club. We ate, we stacked dishes. We moved like 2 people acting out a muscle they remembered. After dinner, I stepped onto the porch and called my son. I told him I was okay. I told him things were moving, and that kindness was still the rule with his mother. I told my daughter the same. I sent Reed a photo of my front door, closed, and he sent back a thumbs up and a reminder to sleep. I tried dotting the morning. Reed called with our hearing date. "Bring your log," he said, "and dress like you always do. We'll let paper do the talking." I hung up and poured coffee into the same blue mug I've carried into 100 boiler rooms. In the distance, kids shouted at a bus stop. Life, indifferent and faithful, kept going. I chose a courtroom over a shouting match. The house was quieter, but my head was louder. I took the guest room, not out of drama, but to give both of us a boundary we could keep. The master smelled like linen and lavender, and a promise that needed rest. In the smaller room, the clock ticked louder, and the window faced the maple. I lay on top of the covers and listened to a different kind of silence, the kind that comes after a decision. In the morning, I told the kids where things stood, careful, kind, and brief. The filings were in. Counsel would speak for me. I asked them to love their mother without taking sides and to let me handle the hard parts. My son said he would keep the grandkids close for a while. My daughter left soup on the porch and texted a heart. We decided Sunday dinner would go on at my table, even if the chairs felt different. I started therapy on a Tuesday at noon, a slot between boilers and ball games. The counselor, a woman with kind eyes and a direct way, told me betrayal is a wound and grief is a map. We talked about breath first, because breath is the only thing you can carry into every room. She asked me to write what I knew, what I feared, and what I couldn't control. I liked the list more than the feelings, but I did both. Work kept me upright. I still had schools to open, alarms to reset, filters to change, and a dozen small fixes that only show up when you put your hands on things. Routine is a mercy. I drank water, packed a sandwich, and walked the hallways until the smell of floor wax steadied me. At lunch, I sat in the truck with the window down and wrote 3 lines in my notebook: eat, move, sleep. I tried to honor them. Church helped too, even when I could not sing. I stood, I sat, I bowed my head, and let other people borrow their faith to cover my doubt. The pastor said truth sets you free, but kindness keeps you whole. I shook hands in the aisle and answered, "How are you?" with an honest enough fine. Afterward, I drove the long way home, past the river and the ball fields, letting the town remind me that most things endure. I moved my wedding band to my right hand and put it back on when I needed courage. I cooked simple food, washed dishes by hand, and walked the neighborhood at dusk. The ache was real. So was the relief. Clarity stops you from arguing with ghosts. I missed the picture we had hung on the wall, but I did not miss the guessing. I slept longer in the guest room than I did in our bed, and the sleep was clean. The counselor gave me small assignments that felt like repairs. Call a friend and tell him one true thing. Put 3 items you cannot control in a box and put it on a shelf. Name the fear, and then name the strength that meets it. I started a workout I could keep: push-ups against the kitchen counter, a light jog around the block, 10 minutes with a dumbbell before coffee. Sweat is a broom. It sweeps feelings into corners you can reach. I made peace with quiet by filling it with good noise. Old records on the turntable. Baseball on the radio. The scrape of a rake on Saturday. I fixed a sagging cabinet door and oiled the hinges that had been complaining for months. I wrote thank you notes to 2 teachers who helped my kids years ago. Service is a bridge. When you walk across to help someone else, you remember you are still useful. That matters when pride is thin. Then came her turn to push back. She said I was controlling. The ledger said otherwise. Her lawyer opened with the story I expected: a loyal wife, a lonely season, a harmless friendship. He spoke about my hours, my habits, my quiet nature, and tried to pour all the weight of our distance into my pockets. Alana kept her eyes on the table and shook her head at the right moments. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. Reed slid our folder forward like a mechanic laying out clean tools. We started with the simple pieces no one could argue with. My reservation at 211, paid with my card. The hotel's acknowledgement of preservation, stamped and dated. The manager's business record statement confirming a room for 2 adults. King bed under Ms. Alana Carter on specific dates. Screenshots of bank alerts with timestamps. A log written in block letters, each line a time and a neutral note. No speculation. No adjectives. Just the kind of facts a judge can read between other cases. Alana's attorney called it coincidence. He said the name could belong to anyone. Reed asked him to name another Alana Carter in Cedar Ridge married to me. Silence is a color you can feel in your teeth. The attorney moved on. He said I was smothering, that a wife's private life is not property. Reed agreed that privacy matters and reminded the court that we had no recordings, no invasions, only documents created in the ordinary course of business. He pointed to the record and let it speak. Alana finally looked up. "It was just a friend," she said, voice shaking. "A mentor. Someone who listened. We didn't do anything wrong." Reed nodded once, then read the dates aloud, letting them land like nails on a roof. He showed the overlap with book club nights Miss Gloria canceled. He displayed the charge that appeared as Magnolia, then softened into a code. He did not accuse. He narrated a pattern. Our state's law treats fault with plain arithmetic. Adultery can bar post-separation support when proven. When not proven to that standard, it still colors credibility and shapes equitable distribution. Reed didn't need fire. He needed math. He asked the judge to hold off on support, to grant me temporary exclusive use of the home, to freeze discretionary spending above a modest threshold, and to order both of us to preserve evidence and refrain from disposing of property. He asked for calm written down. Alana's attorney wanted more than half the estate and monthly support. Reed handed over our one-page timeline. On the last line, I had written a note to myself about the man I promised to be. Reed included it as an exhibit because it explained my restraint. When the judge read my note, the room went quiet. He studied me the way a shop teacher studies at joint-checking angles, looking for gaps. Then he turned to Alana and asked one question. "Why the maiden name?" She said it was a hotel clerical error. The judge raised an eyebrow, the way men do when the grain fights the cut. Orders came like clear weather. Temporary exclusive possession to me. A freeze on discretionary joint spending. No new debt without consent. Exchange of financial affidavits within 10 days. A caution against witness tampering and evidence destruction. No support awarded at this stage, reserved pending further findings. We were told to behave like the adults we claimed to be. The gavel didn't bang. The pen scratched Dot outside. Alana told me I'd ruined her life. I said we had both told the truth we chose. The court had written down its part. She said I was cold. I said I was tired. She said I was controlling. I said paper doesn't take sides. It takes ink. Reed put a hand on my shoulder and steered me toward the sidewalk. I breathed. Paper beats spin. 1 year later, I planted tomatoes, so I'd have something to tend that would give back. The beds went in along the fence where the afternoon light rests. Cedar boards I cut on a Saturday. Compost turned with a shovel I've carried since the kids were small. I ran a string trellis out of baling twine and scrap metal uprights I welded in the shop, and when the seedlings took, I felt something in me stand up. The divorce finalized in the spring. The orders became final, the ink dried, and the keys stayed on my ring. I kept the house, not as a shrine, but as a place to live differently. I painted the bedroom a quiet blue, boxed what didn't fit the new air, and moved the bed to the wall that faces morning. The guest room became a reading nook with a lamp that throws warm circles. The frame that once held our wedding photo now holds a picture of the river at dusk. I don't avoid the past. I dust it and put it where it belongs. I did not rush into dating. People tried to set me up kind-heartedly, and I thanked them without saying yes. I learned the weight of an empty calendar can be good if you fill it with honest work. I kept my therapy appointments, breathed when I didn't want to, and let Sunday afternoons be slow. I ate with friends at Ellie's, helped Mr. Jenkins mend a fence, and rebuilt a neighbor's porch swing just to hear her laugh when it didn't squeak. Work steadied me like always. Boilers still demand respect. Kids still slip notes under office doors that say thank you for fixing the heat. My hands remembered what they know: tighten, level, test, and carry those motions home. I made trellises that don't wobble, and a gate that swings true. I slept in the master again, not because I won, but because peace returned to that room. The ache didn't vanish. It thinned and widened until it felt like weather. On some mornings, it rained for an hour, and the sun broke out anyway. I forgave myself for freezing that first day, and for not knowing what I couldn't know. Forgiveness sounds like silence where blame used to talk. It sounds like waking up before the alarm and remembering you're okay, not my kids come over on Sundays. We set extra chairs, pass plates, and let the grandkids pick cherry tomatoes off the vine. They ask for stories. I tell the ones with mud and light in them. We pass the salt, say grace, and let small joys do most of talking today. If you're where I was, listen close. Truth hurts less than lies stretched over time. If you're standing where I stood, start with breath. Calm isn't weakness. It's a tool that keeps your hands off the wrong levers. Speak less than you write. Write more than you feel. Paper will carry what anger tries to spill. Document without drama. Date, time, place, who said what. Keep your notes plain and readable, like something a judge could skim between cases. Screenshots with timestamps beat speeches. Receipts beat rumors. A quiet log outlasts a loud accusation. Talk to an attorney early. Ask what is admissible where you live. Don't self-sabotage with illegal recordings, fake accounts, or hallway stunts. Keep your hands clean. You want truth, not a technical foul that turns you into the story. Protect your finances, not to punish, but to stabilize the house. Open your own account. Freeze joint lines before they become weapons. Photograph important documents and store copies off-site. Leave the lights on and the bills paid. Control without cruelty. Protect the kids from adult weather. Tell the truth they can carry and no more. Let them love both parents. Don't recruit them as spies or messengers. Someday they will remember who guarded their peace. Choose dignity over rage. Rage scorches twice. Dignity travels farther and leaves fewer stains. Stand up straight, dress like yourself, and let paper speak. You will sleep better knowing you did not add harm to hurt. Find sturdy habits. Water, food, movement, sleep, prayer if you pray. Call one friend. See a counselor. Routine is a handrail when the stairs are slick. If this helped you, drop your city and your local time in the comments and tell me what you would have done in my shoes. I read every word. If you want more true life stories like this, please subscribe. Your super thanks keeps these stories coming and helps someone find the courage to face theirs. Thank you for listening with care. Your presence here turns silence into strength and strength into choices you can trust today.